challenges. In the meantime, I want to talk about the broader markets right now. Joining us for that is Karen Kavanaugh. She's senior market strategist at Avoy Investment Management. Also, Michael Tyler is with us this morning, Chief Investment Officer at Eastern Bank Wealth Management. Good morning to both of you. We've been having lots of conversations, obviously, over the past several days about China, about whether we're going to have an overhang on a potential trade issue or not. We thought it was cleared up yesterday morning, at least temporarily, and it doesn't appear to be. Does this change your calculus at all in terms of how you're approaching the market this morning? I'll start with you, Karen.
Uncertainty is never good for the markets, and as long as this continues to wrangle on back and forth, that doesn't bode well for business planning. However, things still are looking very, very good, and earnings trajectory for 2018 is still about 20%. And there's a lot of good things. I mean, today we talked about the deregulation of banks. That's really going to help the financials. It's helping small businesses. So there's still a lot of good, and we seem to be concentrating on the bad. Uncertainty is never good, but I don't really think we're going to come to an all-out trade war. So I think investors have to kind of concentrate more on the good.
By the way, in terms of, if you look at, I don't know if we could show even just a quick bank index. You just mentioned the banks and the deregulatory effort. This was telegraphed. We knew this was coming. I would argue it's already baked into the cake for the banks. Would you, in terms of the stock price?
Well, maybe
some of the smaller banks that are going to be impacted by this. We're showing some of the bigger banks. Yes. You probably actually should show you a different chart, but nonetheless.
Smaller banks are going to be the beneficiaries, but also the small businesses that maybe aren't financially related. They depend on these banks for their funding. They're not issuing stocks. They're not issuing bonds. And so small business is really the backbone of the U.S. economy. That's where all the action is. So I think that this is going to have a ripple effect, and it hasn't been seen yet. It's not baked into the economy. It's not baked into the estimates.
Michael, where are you?
Well, I think to a degree it is. And when you look at the small caps, for example, setting records while the big caps are still lagging behind a little bit, part of that is the tax cut, which is having a big impact there. But part of it is also, I think, that they're getting somewhat easier financing. And Karen is right. It's really small businesses that are dependent on the small community banks. Those community banks have been putting millions and millions of dollars into regulatory efforts that now they can start redeploying into things that matter, like issuing loans to small businesses.
But therefore, as an investor in the public markets, what's the play?
Well, I think the financials still look good, but that's more of a play on interest rates and what the Fed is doing. The Dodd-Frank rewrite is a nice little positive, but I wouldn't want to overstate its importance in terms of what's driving stock prices. To me, right now, the financial sector, and in fact, a lot of the economy is hinging on what the Fed is going to say in its minutes this afternoon, and whether or not we're looking at 4 hikes, for example, this year instead of 3, and so on.
Right. Either of you just want to jump in and give us your quick take on how to think about the FANGs. The reason I ask is Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook getting truly, I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday. I mean, this was raked over the coals in a way that what took place in Washington was not even a dress rehearsal for what happened. I mean, it was at a different level in terms of the harshness. And I wonder whether you think that indicates or signals something much harsher to come for the tech giants writ large in terms of the entire Silicon Valley.
Well, I think that there is going to be a lot more scrutiny. There's going to be a lot more scrutiny, but look at the revenues, look at the earnings growth on those companies, and follow that, and it will work its way into that. But right now, the stock prices are doing well because the earnings are doing well. But I do think there will be more scrutiny on some of these big tech giants.
Michael, final word?
Yeah, they're going to look at it, certainly, but ultimately, are we as users changing our behavior? No. And as a result, I think the advertisers are still going to be there. And there's nothing fundamentally anti-competitive about what they're doing. So it's going to be a lot of talk, but not a lot of action, I think.
Okay. Karen, Michael, great to see both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.